Welcome back to Between the Levees. Today's episode will be very different from my usual. The topic of the day will be the collision between the motor vessel Cooperative Spirit and the motor vessel RC CREPPEL from the morning of January 26, 2020. I'm going to begin reading 3 articles about this incident. From March 31st of 2020, an article written by the Professional Mariner staff on professionalmariner.com. The article is titled 3 Dead After Collision Sinks Towboat on Lower Mississippi. 3 mariners are missing and presumed dead following a pre-dawn collision between 2 towboats on the Lower Mississippi River near Luling, Louisiana. The 185-foot Cooperative Spirit was upbound with 40 barges when it collided with the downbound RC CREPPEL, which had a 2-barge tow and 4 crew on board. The 69-foot RC CREPPEL sank almost immediately. The incident happened at 05:34 on January 26th at mile marker 123. Quote, after Cooperative Spirit collided with RC CREPPEL, it collided with the bulk carrier Glory first, end quote, Coast Guard spokesman Travis McGee said. Quote, all 42 barges were set adrift from the 2 towing vessels involved, end quote. McGee said Cooperative Spirit's starboard barge string hit the 738-foot bulker. The barges were still attached to the towboat at the time. The Coast Guard identified RC CREPPEL's missing mariners as Shawn Pucheu of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, Matthew Brigaglia of Plaquemine, Louisiana, and Lester Nakhan of Point Au Chien, Louisiana. Crew from the vessel Louisiana rescued the towboat's 4th crew member from the water. That person has not been identified. The Coast Guard and National Transportation Safety Board are investigating the incident. The ongoing inquiries limited what officials could disclose about the collision, specifically the chain of events that preceded it. Also unclear is how RC CREPPEL sank. Cooperative Spirit sustained only minor damage. AIS trackline data shows the 2 vessels approaching one another at 26 Mile Point north of the Hale Boggs Memorial Bridge linking Luling and Destrehan, Louisiana. Cooperative Spirit's trackline then shows it abruptly moving away from the right ascending bank. It is not clear from the AIS data if the movement to port came before or after impact. After the collision, the trackline shows Cooperative Spirit appearing to back away from RC CREPPEL. As it moved downriver with the current, Cooperative Spirit's starboard barges made contact with Glory first at about 0540. The upbound ship was roughly a mile behind the towboats when they collided. The AIS data could not be independently verified, and the Coast Guard has not commented on either towboat's actions before impact. It is not clear if the tows planned to meet port to port or starboard to starboard, or if they communicated over radio. The 2,000 horsepower RC CREPPEL was built in 2012. It was pushing 2 barges, SCC 95 carrying sulfuric acid and RHA 2204 carrying sulfuric acid residues. Damage from the collision caused a, end quote, acute amount, end quote, of sulfuric acid to escape one of the barges from a relief valve. The Coast Guard did not identify which barge was involved. 1 mariner aboard RC CREPPEL was rescued after the vessel sank. The bodies of 3 other crewmen have not been recovered. Quote, the release was in gas form and was calculated out later to be small enough to not merit the label of a, quote, reportable quantity, end quote, McGee said. Cooperative Spirit's 40 barge tow comprised 20 empty barges and 20 barges loaded with undisclosed non-hazardous bulk cargo. The 10,500 horsepower towboat, built in 1975, recovered most of its barges shortly after the initial impact. The Coast Guard led an extensive search for Pucheu, Brigaglia, and Nakhan, assisted by state and local agencies. Searchers covered more than 835 nautical miles over nearly 3 days without locating the men. Efforts to raise RC CREPPEL will begin, quote, as soon as it is safe to do so, end quote, McGee said, acknowledging it could be several months before that happens due to high water and other factors. Memorial services were held for Pucheu, Brigaglia, and Nakhan in their respective hometowns. Thomas Rhodes, a chaplain with the Seamen's Church Institute based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, attended all three services. He said the men were, quote, well supported by the community, end quote, and that mariners drove from miles around to share condolences. Quote, it is devastating when mariners' bodies are not recovered, Rhodes said, referring to such cases as, quote, ambiguous, end quote, deaths. Quote, it is extremely hard on parents and spouses and children when they don't get to see the bodies, end quote. Elite Towing of New Orleans owned R.C. CREPPEL. Rhodes said that Elite's owner knew the victims well. Quote, it was really a painful loss in light of the fact the company owner was very, very connected to these individuals, end quote, Rhodes said. Attempts to reach Elite Towing were not successful. The sinking cut the company's fleet in half. Cooperative Spirit is owned by American River Transportation Company, ARTCO, a subsidiary of agribusiness giant Archer Daniels Midland. An ADM spokeswoman expressed condolences, quote, to the families and friends of those involved, end quote, but declined to comment further due to the ongoing investigations. The fatal collision has spurred lawsuits and other legal maneuvering. Houston attorney Kurt Arnold has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against ARTCO and Elite Towing on behalf of the families of Pucheu and Brigalia. The suit alleges that both vessels were unseaworthy, among other claims. ARTCO attorneys have asked the courts to limit the company's liability stemming from the collision. The company is seeking protection using the Limitation of Liability Act of 1851. ARTCO, through the ADM spokeswoman, declined to comment on the pending legal matters. The next article was published on maritimeexecutive.com, August 26 of 2021. NTSB, wrong AIS presets, poor comms, led to deadly barge collision. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, has issued its final report into the fatal collision between the towboats Cooperative Spirit and R.C. CREPPEL on the Mississippi River last year. The board concluded that inadequate passing arrangements and inaccurate AIS presets were the primary causes of the accident. In the twilight morning hours of January 26, 2020, the Cooperative Spirit was towing 40 barges upriver, and the R.C. CREPPEL was towing 2 barges downriver near Hanville, just west of New Orleans. The water level was high, and the current was running about 5.5 knots. The pilots of the 2 towboats made contact via VHF and reached agreement on a port-to-port meeting in the middle of a river bend. The R.C. CREPPEL's pilot informed the Cooperative Spirit of the size of his tow. The pilot aboard Cooperative Spirit did not reciprocate. As they approached, neither Cooperative Spirit nor R.C. CREPPEL were broadcasting accurate information about the dimensions of their vessels, NTSB reported. R.C. CREPPEL's AIS signal suggested that her length was 69 feet, but she was pushing a 450-foot-long tow. Cooperative Spirit's AIS presets were even further off. She broadcast her length as 200 feet, but her combined tow plus towboat length was over 1,600 feet. Neither had entered the beam of their vessel in the AIS presets. At about 05:33, the barges of the towing vessels collided near 26 Mile Point, and the R.C. CREPPEL rapidly capsized and sank. One of the CREPPEL's deckhands managed to abandon ship, and he grabbed a trailing wire from a nearby barge. Several minutes later, as the situation was still unfolding, the upbound dry bulk carrier Glory First collided with the starboard side of the Cooperative Spirit's tow. The bulker's pilot had early warning of the obstruction, and he successfully maneuvered to minimize damage. Only the R.C. CREPPEL's deckhand was rescued, and the other 3 crew members were never found. The collision caused 42 barges to break loose from both tows, along with a spill of about 8,000 gallons of diesel and a release of sulfuric acid vapor from one barge. Altogether, the collision caused about $3 million in damage to 3 vessels and 11 barges. In its report, the NTSB said a second radio exchange would have helped both towboat pilots identify each other's expectations, but neither pilot made a call after the 2 vessels made passing arrangements. Since there was no call and no danger signal sounded, NTSB believes that neither vessel was aware of the risk of collision. Additionally, The inaccurate AIS presets for both vessels' dimensions left the two towboats without knowledge of each other's true size before they rounded the bend and came into sight. Quote, since the cooperative Spirit pilot did not inform the RC CREPPEL pilot of the size or length of his respective tow when they planned their meeting, nor did the RC CREPPEL pilot inquire as to its size, the RC CREPPEL pilot was likely unaware of the length of cooperative Spirit's tow, and the two pilots had arranged the meeting without a complete understanding of the developing situation. An improved picture of the vessels nearing each other would have occurred if either vessel's AIS included the accurate size of the tows, end quote, NTSB concluded. The NTSB has previously asked the U.S. Coast Guard and industry bodies to better regulate AIS broadcast settings for towboats, and it said that these recommendations have not been put into practice. Quote, these safety recommendations need to be implemented to save lives and prevent maritime tragedies, end quote, the agency advised. The final article I will read came a month after the one I just read. Published in the Associated Press, September 25th of 2021 by Janet McConaughey. New Orleans, AP. A fatal head-on crash between barges pushed by two towboats in Louisiana was caused by inadequate communication and failure to broadcast their total sizes, the National Transportation Safety Board says. The RC CREPPEL overturned and sank after the collision with the cooperative Spirit about 5:30 a.m. on January 26, 2020. Its pilot, captain, and one of two crewmen were never found. A second crewman was rescued. The first of two barges pushed by the RC CREPPEL hit some of the 40 barges pushed by the cooperative Spirit as they tried to pass each other in a bend of the Mississippi River near Destrehan, said the report released in August. Destrehan is about 15 miles, 24 kilometers west of New Orleans, but about 20 miles away along the twisting river. The RC CREPPEL was heading downriver and the cooperative Spirit was going upriver. The agency said neither boat's pilot had entered the total dimensions of boat and tow into the boat's automatic identification system, even though earlier NTSB reports have pointed out that it's important to do so. Each was broadcasting only the towboat's size, 69 feet long, 21 meters for the RC CREPPEL, 200 feet, 61 meters for the cooperative Spirit. The larger boat's barges, though, stretched ahead for another 1,400 feet, 427 meters, and up to 210 feet, 64 meters across, the report said. That made the total length nearly 1/3 of a mile. The boats approaching each other would have had a better picture if either had included its tow size in the broadcasts, the report said. The RC CREPPEL's pilot gave full dimensions, 514 feet, 157 meters, by 42 feet, 13 meters. To the cooperative Spirit's pilot during a radio call to work out plans, the report said, but it said the larger boat's pilot didn't provide such information and the RC CREPPEL's pilot didn't ask. Another call might have clarified what each pilot planned to do, but no subsequent call was made, the report said. The absence of a radio call or danger signal indicates that neither pilot was aware of the impending collision, the report said. It said the cooperative Spirit pilot assumed that the smaller boat's pilot, quote, was in a better location for viewing and assessing their meeting and had plenty of room to move, end quote. But it said, quote, once in sight of one another, about 50 seconds before the accident, there was minimal time for either pilot to react or respond to the other vessel's movements to avoid collision, end quote. Both of the RC CREPPEL's barges and 7 of the cooperative Spirits broke loose. Then the Glory First, a fully loaded cargo ship, hit the remaining tow. Those 33 barges broke free too. The smaller boat's first barge was empty, but the second leaked sulfuric acid vapors. About 8,000 gallons of diesel fuel leaked into the river from the sunk towboat. The NTSB said estimated damage to the 3 vessels and 11 of the barges totaled nearly $3.8 million. The agency noted that in 2016, it recommended that the Coast Guard, the American Waterways Operators, and the Radio Technical Commission for Maritime Services work together to change regulations, procedures, and equipment standards to ensure that automatic information systems broadcast tow size and configuration, as well as boat length. This is still not required. Quote, we generally expect the actions we recommend to be completed within 5 years. However, these safety recommendations are nearly 5 years old, and we have not received any updates from the Coast Guard regarding them in more than 4 years. End quote, NTSB wrote to the Coast Guard on August 20th. The tugboat, towboat, and barge industry group described what it's done toward that end a year ago, and the Radio Commission responded September 7th, but the Coast Guard has not updated the board since 2017, according to NTSB web pages. The Coast Guard is preparing a response, including its actions since 2017, Coast Guard spokesman Kurt Fredrickson said in an email Tuesday. The NTSB emphasizes that it does not assign fault or blame for marine accidents. Rather, it says it finds facts without deciding liabilities or rights. Before I bring on today's guest, I'd like to take a brief moment to share some discussions I had since my meeting with him, with Trey Urban, discussing these very instances, these AIS claims, and some of the rules of the road. So we'll be right back. Well, Captain Trey Urban, welcome back to the show. Of course, you know I'm interviewing Roxane Crawford about the Shawn, or her little brother, and of course the incident January 26, 2020. Tell me what you can about the rules of the road, coordinate and passing arrangements, who has the right of way, anything like that.
All righty. According to the rules of the road, the way it all rolls out, especially on the river, it's the old STC's ST. Oh, geez, I always get them four initials. STCW rules. Southbound traffic, or if you have the current on your stern, you have the right of way. And the way the rules are dictated, southbound traffic initiates where and when you will meet. So the southbounder will tell you, should call you on radio and say, I'm going to be here, meet me on said whistle. And northbounders, that's where you're supposed to be, period. Like we said before, a lot of times you get bullied into situations where you don't want to be where the hell you are, where you want to be, man. So ships and line boat guys, they're famous for it, especially ships. Ships will get you in a crack in a heartbeat, especially these young guys. But yeah, like I remember listening back to the AIS tapes when Lester came off the dock and he told him, I'll meet you, below 26 mile on I think it was on a one. Yeah, I'll catch you on a one down there. And he's like, I don't think you're going to be able to make me on the one. Da, 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 da. Hey, I'm going to keep coming. And then I don't remember hearing anything after that. But Lester had told him, Lester was a seasoned vet. He'd been out here for a hot minute.
Well, these articles I was reading said that the communication wasn't thorough enough, and that the AIS data was not current for either vessel. You have any feedback on those statements?
Well, the AIS data, like those videos I sent you, the AIS is that little bitty box over there on a dash, and that's it. You literally have to go in there and change it. But the AIS interface, I guess you would call it, that box over there, is sometimes a pain in the butt to navigate, and it doesn't have to do it. So here recently, the Coast Guard's starting to change things around because, subchap MRM and all that stuff's coming into play, where towing vessels, your AIS was for your vessel, for your boat, not for your tow. It was just for the boat. So most of the boats, we got to remember, towboats, I think, were one of the first ones where all of the Rose Point and Captain Voyager, there was about 8 different programs that came out. But the AIS was for this boat, not for those barges. So the triangle that you see on the AIS is literally for your boat. but the triangles are all pretty much the same size. When you're looking at them from a distance, you zoom in and then you can see which part of it, you can see more of the boat, kind of a thing. Now it's starting to change. They're updating the programs more and more and more and more. But Rose Point, when they figured out how to tie Rose Point or whatever system you're using into your AIS, you can go in and change your tow dimensions, because if you're a pleasure vessel or a sailboat or whatever, you get just a normal version of Rose Point. We have the towing version where you have barges, so you can put stuff in front of the boat. But yeah, they hadn't changed it in their AIS. I don't know whether the RC CREPPEL I'd never been on a boat, so I have no idea what the hell they were looking at. That other cooperative boat, but I'm sure at one point in time, ARCO has upgraded all of that stuff. Like ACBLs, they do it automatically. It's in your orders. Freaked me out one day. But yeah, when they send you your orders for all your barges, as you pick and drop up barges, it puts it in your tow, and then you have to go in there and rearrange them and put them where you want to put them. But then it'll show back up on your AIS.
All right, Tim, we were talking about AISs the other day. You called, so here you go. This is what most people's AISs really look like, especially back in the day. And as you can tell, this is just a readout of how they are. But if you go to menu, there's nowhere in here for you to change your tow dimensions. So you got user settings, enter. You can change your alarms, your beeps, your buzzers, your auto sorts, receive message and create a CPA, TCPA alarm, and that's it. Sensor statuses and messages sending in and out internal GPS is just for the boat. You can't change any of that. So that's the biggest difference. Also on your AIS, there is a nav status button, and if you click on it, it'll give you your status underway using engine. You can scroll to the right, you can put your destination in, your arrival time, and your cargo type. But as you can see, it's all in numbers. And then your draft and your number of persons on board. Other than that, no, there's nowhere to change anything that you need to change for tow sizes. Now on the Rose Point. So as you can see, I'm sitting here, I'm doubled up. So I'm 385 feet overall in length, 108 foot wide. In order to change this dimension, you need to go to settings, down to vessel, and then change tow configuration. And as you can see, we have one for light boat, empties, and jumbos. But at this point, you would grab a barge and move it, drag it off the screen, it leaves just the boat. If you back out, close this, then you get just the boat. You change it again, back to tow configurations, you grab a barge and drag it over in front of the boat. One barge. And then you can change them and put them in anything. Once you get the barges put in, then you would actually grab the boat, move it, center it, put it wherever you want to put it. But yeah, and then you'd have to back out all of this. But that's how you change it in Rose Point.
Do you have any other feedback as to what could have been done to change the fate of that morning?
Yeah, the ship and that northbound line tow should have stayed below Luling Bridge. If they were worried the river was up, the river's high, the shear on 26 Mile Point is bad. When you get the eddies get, the higher the river gets, the worse the eddies pull on you, and the shear coming off of the upper end of the point gets worse. It's more force. It's a side force. It's not a up and down force. And it's literally about 180 degrees. So yeah, he's coming up. It doesn't matter. But like I said in the last one, it's line. It goes back to a lot of this with these boats, these companies buying different boats and changing names. Us older fellas, we know when we see a boat's name what he's got in front of him, whether it's going to be a unit tow or whether it's going to be a line tow, whether it's going to be a bayou boat running around with something, you know. Sometimes they're the wild card, you know. Sometimes they'll have 1,300 foot of dredge crap behind them, or sometimes they'll have a little bitty deck bar. Sometimes they'll be light boat. Line boat, when you're up north, you know he's got 20. You know, when you get up above Baton Rouge, you know he's got 20, at least 20, 25, 30, hell, all the way up to what, 42 now, I think they're pushing. Below the Baton Rouge Bridge, it's a crapshoot. I mean, he could be running around like boat, or one or two barges, you know, running up from Harbor States up here to the harbor or something. And he's picking up and he's going as he's going back up. So usually you would ask him, but most of the time you just give them room or you just tell them where you want them to be. But that's it. A lot of times, when they're southbound, you know, they're telling you, well, I'm gonna be flanking this, or I'm gonna be slowing down. So, so you got to slow down accordingly and make time. That's all you gotta do. They just didn't do it that morning. I don't know. I remember listening to the AIS tapes way back, but that's been a hot freaking minute ago. But I know Lester called when he left Upper St. Rose Fleet. And I know he talked to him once he got topped around and he was southbound, and he said he was going to be on the one whistle. But it didn't happen that way. He decided to keep coming, and Shear got him at 26 miles.
Did you know all those crew members?
I knew. It's kind of like we were talking about a minute ago. We call them ghosts in the mic. You know, we talk to people all the time. We never see them face to face. But the RC CREPPEL and Lester, Knockin, and the rest of them, I know I've talked to them. I know I've talked to them or worked around them or built tow with them or something somewhere down the line, because we were always in and out of fleets together. You know, back in Lester was always in and out. He worked down the dockside for a while, and I know he worked with Willie Kane, and he worked with Reggie, and he worked with Slick. He worked with all of them guys at one time or another. So, like I said, he was no spring chicken. He was a seasoned guy. He'd been around a hot dang minute. He just happened to be on a chemical tow, so hadn't talked to him in a while. Met him all the time in the canal, you know. Meet him all the time in the canal, running back and forth. But one thing or another, it's still the same thing. We all got, you know, places to be, things to do, and trying to get there as safely as possible. It's just, I don't know why they didn't talk to each other that day. It just, whether it was watch change, whether it was early in the morning, whether they had crap going on, high river. But yeah, the ship just really, there was a lot of non-communication. Like once when the accident happened, I was sitting down here at Starfleet that morning, and I literally put it on Facebook. If you go back on my feed a long way back, and I went, man, y'all better pray, because I took a picture of the thing, and it was like mad dash. It scattered 25 at 26 mile, and I'm like, man, y'all pray, because it was a bad night. It was dark. It was raining. It was nasty. But it's just, man, like, wow, y'all really did this? But he kept coming. So, yeah, when you're a Honda Civic and 18 wheeler pulls out broadside in front of you, somebody's losing the roof, and it's exactly what happened.
My guest today is Miss Roxane Crawford. She is the older sister of Shawn Pucheu, one of the mariners we lost on that day. Roxane, thank you for being with me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking beforehand about some details you were sharing when this incident first occurred. You want to go ahead and share that before we start?
There's a lot of newspaper articles that came out that, you know, they had it down as head on. They had this accident as a head on collision. No, it was not. They were pushed over. The boat was pushed over. I don't know how anybody thinks a boat is going to hold up when it's got 5 empty barges. Well, actually, the whole 5 of them didn't, because they did get past some. The RC had 2 barges strung out, and that first barge actually made it past Arco's barges, the corporate's barges. It made it past them. I think that one probably got damaged after it was sailing on by without anything else attached to it. And the pilot didn't realize that there was anything wrong until that barge went by. Anybody can watch the video. Anybody can watch the video. National Transportation Safety Board put it up on their MAB report. There's 3 videos in there. And I have the video. I watched that video just to have to prove that it was Lester speaking on the on the VHF radio. And I watched that boat. I watched the Arco barge move and the RC CREPPEL show up from under that barge. And that man had a spotlight on that boat going down for the last time and telling people, I think that boat sunk. Okay.
And you had mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, I'm glad he was thinking.
Well, you had mentioned Mr. Tiss following the incident. How did you gain access to that system?
My brother changed phones out a lot. And then when he would leave his, or he hooked it up for us if we wanted to find out where the boat was at any time. You know, when you hear of other boats sinking and stuff, you always, first thing you do is you pick up the phone and you want to know who's where and what boats it was. And everybody prays for the family, right? So automatically, you know, we went to Mr. Tiz, but days following, we went back and just screenshotted all of the times up until, from before and up until the accident. It shows a whole lot different than the AIS picture that they put on the National Transportation Safety Board site. It's a whole lot different. And no, there was no way. There was no way of Lester knowing without. But how much communication do you do? The RC CREPPEL wasn't, but maybe 25 minutes underway from leaving from Arco. Yeah. I mean, Narco down in wherever you want to call that. But then Shell, Narco. And I believe there was a lot of other chatter on the radio besides those 2. You know, once they make it a law that you have to communicate, because everybody thinks that, just like this incident, no communication. No, the right communication wasn't done. I'll say that. I'll say that. And I'm sorry Lester didn't ask him, you know, and demand, you know. My uncle when Shawn first started working for Elite Towing as a deckhand after leaving by my dad, he went on a boat with he went on the Sunny Cook with my uncle Willie, who was the captain there, and my cousin Ed, that my grandparents raised. My mom, he was raised with my dad and with us, Ed, because he was halfway in between. Was a deckhand as well. So it was like the whole little family getting in on the boat, you know. And anyways, Uncle Willie's been on the river for just as long as my daddy. And he was looking at that, and it just angers him so much. You know, everybody knows you hold up below the point. Yeah, I heard the same thing from him when he was asked why he didn't tell his toe, because everybody knows the corporative spirit has a big toe. The AIS thing just makes, you know, I would like to see every boat with it. Every boat have it, but I don't even think that would have stopped this. It wasn't going to stop this. High River and I can't. There's a court coming up, and so the rest of it I really don't want to get into. But after August the 22nd, I'll be glad to put it out there.
We'll see how things turn out. But if you want to jump in, tell me, of course, where you were born, about your parents, your family, when Shawn was born, up until really, I guess, that horrible morning.
Yeah. Well, my Shawn, my sister, and I were all born in New Orleans, Truro Hospital, and we lived on Spain Street. I was 3, Shawn was 1 when we moved to Bay St. Louis. That was my dad's hometown, where he was born, where both my grandparents were born, and where I still live, you know, and up into that. And up into the accident, since the accident, things have not been the same. It's like hitting a brick wall to do anything. You know, we tried to get a memorial marker, which was going to be like a headstone marker, but it had a lighthouse on the side holding a black tablet that we were going to have the picture of the boat and their names, and just in memory of the RCL, you know, CREPPEL crew. We went a year trying to find out where we can get a permit to get this done. Finally, got all that information, and then we get a letter, an email from Lafourche Parish saying $600 and a $3 million insurance policy, and we could put the marker there by the bridge. So much for people caring a lot. $3 million insurance policy. Wow. So we do have a cross that Matthew's family had made and hung on the fence, and Lester's youngest daughter and her mom go out and keep it up as much. We don't get that way. We go sometimes. It's very hard, very hard to go that way. You know, we were told that they can't find the boat. There's a spot that Trey Urban sent a video to me, and we sent it on over to the Coast Guard and the Corps of Engineers. When we contacted the Corps of Engineers, the lady contacted us back and said that boat's been recovered. It's like, what? Where? When? Immediately she, well, our next email, I should say, she apologized for not knowing that the boat was never recovered. And they went out, the Corps of Engineer went out and surveyed the spot and just call it an anomaly. My emails over that has been unbelievable. They said because it's not a size. It could be, but it's not the size. Well, what size is it supposed to look like when it was most definitely damaged by being pushed over and run up underneath barges? I mean, I don't know. In my heart, that's where it's at. But with today's technology, they should be able to show me a picture of something. You know, we asked for the reports on that and got nothing. Wait, I'm going to take that back because I'm not going to lie. No need to. They sent us a they sent us a piece of paper explaining what the scans do and how they work. I was wanting to see, what were you looking at down there? Show me those scans. Let me see the pictures. Let me see what was showing up. Nope. Now the Corps of Engineers did send some pictures and just marked out anomaly. They're going to call it an anomaly. And I'm going to say, well, how many metal things sunk? And I know there was a ferry that went down there, but there was a lot still, you know, people go, there's a lot still down there. And I'm sure a lot got recovered as well. You know, I don't want somebody else getting hurt because I've heard, well, it's too dangerous. But with today's technology and just after watching what they did for that submergible little thing out in the ocean, I'm looking at the Mississippi River like it's a bathtub and the RC CREPPEL's like a duck compared to the needle in the haystack that they just recovered stuff.
Well, before we go too far down that road, fill me in on your family history in the maritime industry, and then I guess what you can of Lester, what you can of Shawn's upbringing and then his career development.
Okay. Well, my grandfather, Charles Pucheu, was a captain. Well, he was in World War II when he came back from the war. He went to work for the train railroad, left that, became a captain on boats. And like I said, he worked for Sydney Tourist, and he worked for Eddie Conrad at Compass Marine. There was other companies in there, but I mean, I was only a baby. I was only 10 when he passed away. My dad was already a captain, a boat captain, when I was born. So my whole life, that's what, in Shawn's whole life, in our household growing up, either dad would be home or Papa would be home. So we always had a man figure at home. There wasn't my grandmother and my mom wasn't there, raising us by themselves. We always had a man around, and we had my cousin Ed, who it was my grandmother's baby brother's child that she raised. So My dad was like 10 years old when Ed was born, and then when Ed was 10, I was born. So we just kept babies. And he was like our older brother. He was also a tugboat captain. So somebody was always home with us. We got to do the usual stuff growing up, climb the walls of the house, spitball fights, horseback riding, go-kart, because somebody made a crazy track through the woods. NASCAR would have been proud. Shawn loved to get on that thing and try to jump it. That was before the rest of it. Always wild, right? Always wild. Need for speed is what I told them. Because later on, the Mini Cooper had to be hopped up. Truck had to be hopped up. We call that one the Beast. Harley Davidson hopped up. You just name it. He always put the best effort in everything. And if he didn't know how to fix it, he'd Google it, YouTube it, straighten it out, get her done. Shared anything he had. People he met playing a game online, a young fella there lost his phone. Indonesia, I think, is where he was from, and was having difficulties. My brother bought him a phone. Of course, some of the people in the same game kind of chipped in, but Shawn paid the most for it and sent the boy the phone so he could get a job too, He touched the lives of so many by what he did. He was always close, always up, always keeping track with everybody. And not to say that he was on the phone the majority of the time. You have to realize too that the pushing acid barges, they wasn't constantly on the go. They would get somewhere and have to wait for the barge to be unloaded and or loaded up, so they had a lot of downtime. Because Shawn did work for he worked for Elite in the beginning as a deckhand. When he got his license, he went to work for Stone Fueling, and Katrina hit. Because Shawn got his license, I think it was 2000. And then when Katrina hit, he went to Alabama, and he got a job with a company up there. I can't remember the name of it. He wasn't there too long. He came back to working for Stone. And then Elite had built the RC CREPPEL, and it was fixing to hit the water. And he just loved the CREPPEL family because he grew up on a Sunny Cup, pretty much. He was actually 17, because he was like 15, 16 when he was working with my daddy as a deckhand for a little while. And he took the opportunity of taking it slower and just, doing the acid barges from what he was doing with Stone. So, and love being back with them because, yeah, they treat you like family. They do. And I know it's not about the money with them, I'm sure they had nightmares as well, because after the accident, the morning I got the phone call, we'll go to that morning that I got the phone call about the boat going down. It's been very difficult to sleep without having a nightmare. and you're always drowned in, in the last 3 years, I had a couple that he was smiling in it, or, saying everything was going to be all right. But more on the drowning. And it's very difficult for us because, my mom still she looks at all the homeless people because she's like, oh, he made it off that boat and he has amnesia, but he's gonna come home soon as he gets better. I said, okay, Mom. Actually, 2 days ago, I thought I saw somebody riding a bicycle that looked just like him. I was like, okay, I'm by myself. Do I follow a homeless guy because he looked homeless with a backpack? Do I follow this homeless guy that's going into the woods and go, hey man, I need to see you a little bit better here. Let me talk to you. But so anything and everything that we try to do is like hitting a brick wall. No other explanation. And I can't give up the hope. I can't give up the hope of finding something. That the river drops out, the bottom drops out. Right now it's at 2 point something feet in New Orleans, and normally that's not what it is this time of the year. It doesn't get down to that until like August, September. So maybe this year will be the year. Maybe this year will be the year. Or somebody will go, hey, this family suffered enough. Let me see if I can get some pictures. Let me see if I can just, do something. I have a lot more people telling me just to give up. And my brother wouldn't have gave up on me. It's not the PC way. My grandfather was the same way. People flocked around him just because of how good he was to everybody. And Shawn was the same way.
Well, I think I may have mispronounced your maiden name in
Yeah.
my introductory comments, though. Apologize for that. But can you tell me, what sort of things did Shawn like to do in his off time?
Oh well, let's see. He flew drones. He built them. He actually would build drones and fly them. He painted vehicles. He painted his truck. That thing looks like a mirror. Like I said, if it needed to be done, he just did it. From helping take care of my mom. And he had limitations on that when it came to sitting there with her and watching her and stuff like that. He was all on that. um, sometimes if he couldn't come and sit in, he would pay for somebody to come to give me a break. Um, animal lover, animals love him. We have a dog that if I'd have brought the picture, she literally would press her face up against his face every time. She still waits on crew change day. She still waits 3 years later at the gate, waiting for him to come home. But we have to have the picture of her and him sitting next to his picture, that because she sits and tears roll out of her eyes. People's gonna say, hey, animals don't act like that. Yeah, they do. He loved to fish, go fishing. He was got a tractor. Was clearing land, setting up fences for horses,
Did you say earlier he had children and grandchildren?
Yes,
How
yes,
old,
he has.
how old are they these days?
Well, both his boys are in their 30s. Travis is Down syndrome, and I guess he's just realizing that Shawn's not coming home. He's been waiting 3 years for his dad to come back. But now I guess he's just realizing it's not going to happen. He was told, but he, it's like us. He didn't see, so he can't believe. And he has 2 grandsons and a granddaughter. That right after the accident, the oldest grandson is 12. Oh, no, 13. He just made 13. And he didn't want to touch water. He didn't want to, he was scared to touch water. And the little baby, he's never met because he was born January 27th of 2020. A year and a day I prayed when she went into labor on the 26th that she would be able to hold on just a little bit longer because we didn't want January 26th to mark my birthday. And it did. Accident came out on the 27th. He never will know his grandfather. He'll know of him. But a lot of future family gatherings and all that is all missed. It's all missed. And it's same for Matthew and Matthew's parents, Lester's children, Lester's father, who's also a tugboat captain. We've been through a lot, and then just more and more and more. It doesn't seem real after 3 years. Does that make any sense? I feel so sorry for anybody that has to go through no closure. Everybody said, "Oh, have a funeral service that'll help you." No, it didn't. We did. We tried. We've had candlelight vigils. We went ahead and did the funeral service. We got the grave marker for the grave because, at one point I'm going, "Oh my God, I can't even put flowers out," And we were very big at that. My grandparents, my grandmother drag us out there as little kids to the graveyard to do the cleaning and family graves and putting out the flowers on family graves. And here we are, we don't even have one of those. We have a marker out there now. We do have a marker at the graveyard. No memorial marker at the bridge other than the cross. And I guess anybody out there want to donate a $3 million insurance policy to LaFouche Parish for a marker, we could do one. What the towboaters out there need to do is please save every receipt that you have because your family will need that. They need to know how you spent your money that you make, because your family may not need that. If you spent it on you and you not here anymore, your family don't need that. They get to ask a lot of questions that when it boils down to it don't mean stuff. And I'm going to tell you, Shawn had what they call a gastrointestinal stromal tumors. That was cancerous. For 7 years, he was taking medication that caused him to be in pain. But he never took pain medication because of his job. He he went through hell and back. And to have a judge, even though it was a probate judge, look into my sister-in-law's face and say to her, well, he was going to die anyway. Or he didn't suffer for long. There's a lot of cool people in this world. And if that had nothing to do with the owners of Elite, that was coming from the other company, and the judges that was put up in there, you know, don't make those kind of comments to people. Don't do it. They say sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. That's the biggest lie. That's the biggest lie. And the Bible tells you this tongue is like a sword. Those words that were spoken at that time will forever be something I can't get over either. Nobody should have that right.
Well,
And that, my friend, is over money, what they thought they could rip you down to. Yeah. So anybody out there, towboating world, hold on to them receipts, document them well. They go back for years.
well, I do hope very, very sincerely that you, your family, and all the parties involved are able to find some sort of closure or some sort of solace, that these legal cases are resolved, and that hopefully that boat is retrieved. I'm following along on Facebook, of course, every Sunday for, I believe, 180 Sundays now. You've posted a reminder. I do hope to see one day that you can stop posting on Sundays, that the boat has been received, that everything related to this has been resolved. I know it's a long time now, but you have anything else you'd like to share here today?
I tell you, Tim, I can talk about my brother forever, you know, and mainly, he showed such a love for everybody. Like I said, he never met a stranger that he wouldn't. The minute that they took a couple hours after talking to him, they were either calling him brother, uncle. You know, they were honorary members of the family, and I would like for him to be remembered that way. You know, I try to do that every day, and I don't know, when I hear uh, anything negative about this whole thing, or just negative about him or anything like that, I just go off, because he never deserved any of that. I don't believe anybody that this has ever happened to deserves it. I'm not here to judge. I just know how we feel, that we've been let down by the Coast Guard. If they would have done their updates, still haven't been done as of this day, for vessel traffic services in that area. That's a very busy fleet area, bends, bridges, and we'll see. I don't even, At this point, I don't even know if what I'm going to call justice. I believe that this pilot shouldn't have a license. My brother always believed that, driving his car, and he had a ticket that was for driving excessive, dangerously, or whatever, that he would lose his pilot license. He would lose his captain's license, in his own personal car on a highway. And this man had prior accidents that were on forms, not just by mouth. And I think more needs to be done in that area. When somebody has that many, how many accidents do you stop and look at the person's driving abilities? Put them back in school. Here, you're suspended. Go back to school. Let's show yourself. And for the young fellas coming up and thinking that these machines, the AIS, is going to tell you everything. I remember I was a walking telephone book when we had a rotary dial phone, push button phone on the wall. Cell phones, I can maybe remember 3 numbers and half of the other ones. If I look down, I can recognize it and go, oh yeah, so-and-so's calling, if I don't have their name in. If I got their name in, I'm not even seeing that. I'm not noticing that. And it's going to happen with the AIS as well. They let the machines, and machines aren't always right either. If you get a chance to look between Mr. Tiz and what the AIS or the Rose Point was doing on the boats that day, it shows like the 2 boats really, really close. There was 1,400 feet of barges in front of the Corpus Spirit. That's bigger than Titanic, is what their size was going through there. High river. Just way too many things. The Coast Guard can limit how many barges can be pushed in High River. Half of that was implemented, but not how many barges. And I don't know. I would like to see changes. I would like to see the vessel transportation, the vessel traffic services, down in that area working. Because some of these young people, they need traffic guards. I'm gonna call it what it is. They need somebody else telling them when they can go and when they can't. Some guy says, well, I'm better than so and so because I did this. No, you just made it through there. You playing Evil Knievel with my family's lives out there, or anybody living next to a levee. If you could imagine what would have happened had one of those, I'm going to say 41 barges, because one barge was on top of the other one for, that was loose that day. If they would have hit a levee, we wouldn't be looking at Luling, Pineville. It would be the 9th ward after Katrina, New Orleans after Katrina. And all because somebody thought that I don't need to do this. He's got to know more than me. That was the man's words during a court. I thought he knew more than me. And I would have thought he knew the rules and would have hung up below the point. I don't think Leslie knew they were going to meet in the point. That's not a meeting place. He might have thought they were meeting below the point. Okay. But in the point, no. I heard people say that the RC CREPPEL was going too fast. I don't know the speed limit signs for the river. And I understand that, you know, he could have been, if he was going a little slower, he might have been able to do what? Nothing. And as far as the Rose Point on Cooperative Spirit showing that they were going to be in an accident, and we'll go with the late, you know, the latest one they said was 4 minutes. That wouldn't have stopped it either. But what it would have done was maybe the life loss would have changed. Because the one fella that did make it, he had time to stand up from a seating in the galley to grab a life vest that was on top of the fridge a couple of feet away before they got hit. It was mere seconds. Mere seconds. And if you watch the video, you can see the light, how long it took to go over. Mere seconds. Mere seconds. And our little buddy there was very lucky, and we were very thankful. We thank God a lot for him making it. His family doesn't have to go through this, but I think the suffering, the mental suffering that he has to endure is just as bad. And I hope that anybody thinking about getting a license, make sure you know more than what the computer system knows. My brother learned how to, my uncle would give him, you got to be here. This is what the river's running. This is what the, you know, this is how the weather is. This is the track you're taking. How long is it going to take you to get there by, and he could do that in his head. He could do that in his head. He didn't have to have Mr. Tiz, AIS, Rose Point, and for the people that think that just getting on the radio jibber jabbering because the Coast Guard put in here, or the National Transportation put in the thing that communication, that's communicating, you're stopping the guys that need to be discussing their passing. There was a lot of jibber jabber in there, a lot, for nothing. Lester never had a chance. Now, Corporate Spirit, after the accident, said, hey, what'd you do? RC CREPPEL, where are you? What'd you do? And all of this was minutes. Minutes. I'm glad that when I talked to my brother, he would call, good morning, sunshine. And at the end of every call, I love you. It was the job that he just, you know, we knew the dangers of working on the river. But do you have to have people having a license, and or the goofy stuff that people think that they're doing is great, it's awesome, it's not safe? No. To prove that they are man, I can push more barges than you. Can you do it safely? My truck can do 130. If I get in an accident and kill somebody, I'm going to jail. You know, you can't do 130 just because it can. You want to do something like that? Do it in an area that can handle it. That area cannot. Or those changes, horsepower ratio, need to change. Not just the AIS. Yeah, I think Lester would have known more had he known how many barges were there. But 20 large tow, 40 large tow, not much difference. Yeah, it is. It is a lot. 700 feet in difference, right? And just saying, oh, I didn't say what I had because, hey, it's the corporate spirit. Everybody knows. That's arrogance to me. And that burns that burns in the back of my mind all the time. And on my little Sunday post, I get a lot of people that make their comments and say this is about money. I misunderstood someone the other day because they were saying this is about money. He was meaning it was about money for getting the boat up. I believe that as well. I believe they know exactly where it's at, and it's about the money of getting it up. But as far as what I do about the money, no. Nope. And I would hope to save other people's lives. Nobody deserves this. No family deserves this. And if you're going to go working on the river, be safe. Be safe. And if you don't trust the person driving the boat, get off. Industry's hurting right now. They say not enough people going out there because they can make more money staying home with their family. It's a sacrifice. Like I said, we grew up, everybody captain. But we had more than one captain living at home, so we always had a man at the house. We always had a man figure that helped mold. And nope. You can't just go out there and take somebody else like that, those figures out of there, and go, oh, it was an accident, their fault. I don't know. Something different, change the horsepower ratio, do something that matters. Because changing that AIS to the 57, the difference between the Mr. Tiz and what AIS was showing is a big difference. It's a big difference. And I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference. It wouldn't have made a difference if both of them had it. And they could see prior to, I'd say, yeah, that would make a difference. But if they'd have just said, hey, I got 40 barges, Lester might have went, oops, okay. If he would have held up below the point, like he was supposed to, okay. So people are not following the rules of the road for boating. They're getting away with not following them because we make other excuses. And I think the companies should be made sure that the people they put in charge of those boats are capable of handling them. Sorry. And I pray for anybody that starts out going as a deckhand. Because the license system sucks now. You know, anybody can be a pilot. Anybody can be a pilot. Anybody can be a captain. I worked as a deckhand for my dad on a shrimp boat. A couple of times that I was left holding the wheel, we winded up in a ship channel. I mean, my dad would go, "Hey," wake up for his little nap. "Where are we? I told you to follow that light. I was following that star, man. I was doing just that. Didn't make me a captain or safe even, but and I find it no different with the tugboat world. You know, I find it no different in the industry. My brother had pride in holding that license. My dad had pride in holding his license. My uncle Willie, pride in holding them license. You do what you can. You have pride in the company you working for. You have pride in yourself, and you have it's respect. Maybe I'm looking for the word respect. Our world has lost that. The tugboat, the boating industry has lost that, and I hope they find it again.
I think that's a good place to stop. I do appreciate you sharing your story today. And again, I do hope all of this is resolved as soon as it can be. It certainly should have by now, I think.
Oh yeah, and thank you so much, Tim, for giving me the opportunity to express uh, how it is, and and I and let people know. I just pray that it doesn't happen to their family. They need to do something different.
We'll stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.